Hank, Hank, go to bed. I love you. He smiled. I know, but I don't much deserve it. He shuffled off before I could reply. And so to bed, as Mr. Pepys says. We slept while the owls hunted and Arlette sat in her deeper darkness with the lower part of her hoof-kicked face swung off to one side. The next day the sun came up. It was a good day for corn, and we did chores. When I came in hot and tired to fix us a noon meal, there was a covered casserole dish sitting on the porch. There was a note fluttering beneath one edge. It said, "Wilf, we are so sorry for your trouble and will help any way we can. Harlan says don't worry about paying for the harvester this summer. Please, if you hear from your wife, let us know. Love, Sally Cottery. P.S. If Henry comes calling on Sean, I will send back a blueberry cake." I stuck the note in the front pocket of my overalls with a smile. Our life after Arlette had begun. If God rewards us on earth for good deeds, the Old Testament suggests it so, and the Puritans certainly believed it, then maybe Satan rewards us for evil ones. I can't say for sure, but I can say that was a good summer, with plenty of heat and sun for the corn and just enough rain to keep our acre of vegetable garden refreshed. There was thunder and lightning some afternoons, but never one of those crop-crippling winds Midwestern farmers fear. Harlan Cottery came with his Harris Giant and it never broke down a single time. I had worried that the Farrington Company might meddle in my business, but it didn't. I got my loan from the bank with no trouble, and paid back the note in full by October, because that year corn prices were sky high and the Great Western's freight fees were at rock bottom. If you know your history, you know that those two things, the price of produce and the price of shippage, had changed places by 23, and have stayed changed ever since. For farmers out in the middle, the Great Depression started when the Chicago Agricultural Exchange crashed the following summer. But the summer of 1922 was as perfect as any farmer could hope for. Only one incident marred it, having to do with another of our bovine goddesses, and that I will tell you about soon. Mr. Lester came out twice. He tried to badger us, but he had nothing to badger with, and he must have known it, because he was looking pretty harried that July. I imagine his bosses were badgering him, and he was only passing it along. Or trying to. The first time, he asked a lot of questions that really weren't questions at all, but insinuations. Did I think my wife had had an accident? She must have, didn't I think, or she would either have contacted him in order to make a cash settlement on those 100 acres or just crept back to the farm with her, metaphorical, tail between her legs. Or did I think she had fallen afoul of some bad actor while on the road? Such things did happen, didn't they, from time to time? And it would certainly be convenient for me, wouldn't it? The second time he showed up, he looked desperate as well as harried, and came right out with it. Had my wife had an accident right there on the farm? Was that what had happened? Was it why she hadn't turned up either alive or dead? Mr. Lester, if you're asking me if I murdered my wife, the answer is no. Well, of course you'd say so, wouldn't you? That's your last question to me, sir. Get in yonder truck, drive away, and don't come back here. If you do, I'll take an axe handle to you. You'd go to jail for assault. He was wearing a celluloid collar that day, and it had come all askew. It was almost possible to feel sorry for him as he stood there with that collar poking into the underside of his chin and sweat cutting lines through the dust on his chubby face, his lips twitching and his eyes bulging. No such thing. I have warned you off my property, as is my right, and I intend to send a registered letter to your firm stating that very thing. Come back again and that's trespassing and I will beat you. Take warning, sir. Lars Olsen, who had brought Lester out again in his red baby, had all but cupped his hands around his ears to hear better. When Lester reached the doorless passenger side of the truck, he whirled with an arm outstretched and a finger pointing, like a courtroom lawyer with a bent for the theatrical. I think you killed her. And sooner or later, murder will out. Henry, or Hank, as he now preferred to be called, came out of the barn. He had been pitching hay and he held the pitchfork across his chest like a rifle at port arms. What I think is you better get out of here before you start bleeding, he said. The kind and rather timid boy I had known until the summer of 22 would never have said such a thing, but this one did, and Lester saw that he meant it. He got in,